This area here west of our evaporating building was pretty much all blowed down here in spring of '94. And I mean, there was an exceptional tree there that didn't get knocked over, and that big white oak standing over there didn't either, but everything else in here went down. And what we have by the chainsaw here is kind of an example of the brush that came back up, and they were that way probably after about, I suppose, 4 or 5 years. So what we did is we came in here and we started knocking off, picking out a few trees, and a little bit the bigger ones, and maybe like in this area here, we'd knock out the one by the chainsaw, and then this one over here, we'd knock that one out. We'd leave it grow a little bit, give it some room to grow, and we kept doing that on a kind of a 3 or 4 year basis. So then we got trees that are coming up to be this size here. This is about a 6-inch tree, where otherwise all we had is brush like this in the area. They were so thick that they would compete with themselves. I mean, eventually after 50 years or so, a couple of them might die out, like this one here did. And then this one here is going to get a little bigger, and so on. But they've all been like this. But because we did this thinning operation in here, pretty much I did it, I guess. We've got some trees in here that are going to be tapped here in the next few years, possibly even this year. Like that bigger one over there, that was not one of the saplings that started up, but ones like this here certainly wouldn't have been much bigger than the one over here if we hadn't been continually thinning around the trees and giving them a little bit of room to grow. So we've got an area here we'll be able to tap, and we're kind of happy about that, because we'll probably be around to see some sap produced in this area, where otherwise pretty much growed back nothing but brush. So what we're doing here is probably kind of a last thinning, at least before we tube this area. I understand that these trees are still too close together to have the optimum type situation, where you'd have big trees like this one over there. I suppose that's about a 10-12 inch tree. These other ones are about 6 to 8 inches, but they will run sap, and we tap them with a much smaller spile than they used to be tapped with. We used to use 7/16, almost a ½ inch. And now we're down to a 1/4 inch, and actually I had tapped some trees here probably 20 years ago with even a smaller spile than that. I forget what they were. They were like 3/32 or something, just a dainty little spile. Anyway, these will run a decent amount of sap. It's all in the leaf coverage. Our canopy gets pretty well fully covered. They're going to produce sap probably on an equal basis with the total sap produced of if you had a lot larger trees. And one of the disadvantages of larger trees, I mean supersized trees, like if there's one from here to that van up here, you got to string a lot of saggy tubing between your taps, where here we can have them tight from one tree to the next, and that better drains it, makes it easier cleaning in the spring, and just kind of works out better. So it takes a little more work because you got more taps to put in, and more to tap in, more to probably do some cleaning in the spring. But I haven't got 30 years to wait for the optimum situation, so we're getting in here and we're thinning out a few of the remaining trees that would give some of the ones that are left here a little more opportunity to get larger. So once we get this done, then we can probably start bringing some tubing in here. And I'm using to help me out here, dragging these a little closer to the trail, is this, I think this is a Farmy winch. There's other brands that are out there. It works really well for this kind of a operation, at least the way I'm doing things here. I don't care for the big equipment to come in here and destroy a lot of those smaller trees. So I'm able to work well with this rig. It's turned out, this one I think is about 35 years old. I've had this unit and it's held up real well. Let's see if I can videotape a little bit the way this thing works. It's really easy to pull out. I mean, I got a 440 pole skidder that you can't pull out with one hand like I can with this thing. I mean, you got to get two hands on it and drag that cable, and it only has probably, I suppose, 40-50 feet of cable, where this thing I think's got over 100. So I got a little one up here that's way way up there. Let's see if we can wander on up to it and hook onto it. I suppose this one is about 75 or 100 feet from the tractor here. I lost my glove. Chopper mitt, I should say. All right, so I'm dragging these cables uphill. It's always a little more challenge, but like I say, this one here drags pretty easy compared to some. I hope I got enough cable to reach this end. This is just a small section here of a tree. Okay. Yeah, it just took 2 hands to get that. Something had to get snelled up a little bit in the winch there. So we just got one of these short, I think this is a 6-footer. I mean, make change for these things too, but I found this thing works pretty decent too for grabbing onto them. So we'll go back to the tractor and see if we can pull this away. Sometimes it'll get snagged on something like this down here or up against a stump. I got to walk back up and do that. It's not a fast operation, but it sure beats dragging them out by hand. The wrong button there. Focus down here on this thing. There we go. Okay. Come on, get off of there. There we go. We'll see what she snags up on. Now, so far, so good. Get that big tree or not? Stop her pretty quick here so I don't pull my pile all the heck. I get her that close and I can go in with my pickaroon or my hand grabber here and bring her up to the pile. Saw off the chainsaw and it's a done deal. Kind of a one-man band here. It's hard to do the videoing and work at the same time, but I think you can get the general idea of what we're doing here. Dragging these up to the pile. I got that last one there. This is February 3rd actually, and these trees have been running a little sap. Warm weather here, it's really been unusual. See where that one is cut there? Where that sap is, sun's hitting it and the sap's coming out of the wood. All right, let's go up and get that other one. Tougher to pull that cable uphill, but I can tell you, pulling these things downhill is a lot easier than dragging them uphill. Okay, got that job done. I should add that usually we got about 2-3 feet of snow this time of year, but not this year. So we're taking advantage of that and being able to work around a little bit to get a few things done that we couldn't get done otherwise. Quite often with this operation you have to walk back up from the winch down there and you find a spot like this where the piece you're trying to skid out is hooked behind a rock that's frozen into a little root mass. This is one of the trees that went down back in '94 along with that one over there, and their root mass just went up in the air 8 feet, and then it finally decayed and dropped down into what my grandmother used to call cradle knolls. Never knew what caused them, but a pretty good idea right now. And there'll usually be a hole in back of it where the root mass was, and then there'll be this mound up in front. You can kind of tell what direction the wind was out of. There's a couple of bumps down there that I would guess happened before I was born. There's a tree that's coming up out of a root mass right there. The stump there was probably from '94 when these were all tipped over. Big wind came through here, shear wind they called it, I guess, and I mean it just took out everything. We had 1,200 taps, and there was probably 200 left after that went through in '94.